You might be wondering how coalition governments form and why UPSC often probes their stability, strengths, and weaknesses, especially in modern Indian politics. By the end of this video, you will be completely clear about this topic and ready to answer related questions with confidence. Think of a coalition as several political parties choosing to row the same boat because no single party can reach the shore alone. Today we will unpack what coalition politics means, its key features, why it grew in India, and the main merits and demerits you must remember for the exam. And towards the end, we will understand a key idea that most UPSC aspirants miss about how coalitions affect policy making. Start with the basic meaning. Coalition comes from the Latin word coalitio and simply means to grow together or unite in one body. In politics, it refers to different parties joining to form a government on the basis of a common or negotiated agenda when no single party has a majority. Picture it visually. Multiple party leaders around one negotiating table, sharing seats in cabinet and agreeing on a joint manifesto or common minimum program. There are two core concepts in coalition governance: common governance, where decisions are taken jointly, and joint governance, where power and portfolios are distributed among partners. Another feature to note is that coalition functioning is usually informal and pragmatic rather than strictly legalistic or purely ideological. A pre-poll coalition, where partners go to voters together, tends to be fairer because voters see the joint manifesto before casting their vote. Historically, coalitions are not new. They trace back to alliances between states to defeat common enemies. And in India, they became prominent after the 1960s and especially after the 1980s and 1990s. Examples you should recall for UPSC include the Janata Party experiment, the United Front, the two UPA terms, and the NDA eras led by Atal Bihari Vajpayee and Narendra Modi. Remembering a few landmark coalitions with their ears and prime ministers helps illustrate patterns of support and outside backing during unstable periods. Why did coalition politics grow in India, you may ask? First, the democratization of politics led to the rise of regional parties representing linguistic, caste, or local interests that national parties could not fully absorb. Second, India's vast diversity makes single-party claims to represent everyone less convincing. So coalitions better reflect a mosaic of identities. Third, voters became more assertive, and regional leaders gained negotiating leverage, pushing national politics toward alliances and power sharing. Now let's look at the advantages, the merits that often make coalitions desirable. Coalitions encourage consensus-based politics and reduce the chance of majoritarian rule by forcing negotiation and compromise. They can better reflect the popular will across regions and social groups, making governance more inclusive and democratic. When a coalition has a clear parliamentary majority and a cohesive common program, it can be stable and focused on governance rather than populist short-term measures. Coalitions also allow policy flexibility and continuous scrutiny from partners, which can correct mistakes and improve accountability. But coalitions have important downsides too, and you must be ready to discuss these critically in answers. Distribution of portfolios among partners can weaken the Prime Minister's direct control and complicate coherence in policy implementation. Decision-making often moves from formal procedure to backroom bargaining, which can undermine transparency and institutional norms. Parties may prioritize staying in power over ideological consistency, leading to fragile compromises and frequent ruptures. Policy paralysis is possible when partners hold divergent views, making bold reform difficult and slowing administrative efficiency. For UPSC answers, weigh both sides. Explain how coalitions increase representation but can reduce decisiveness and policy clarity. A useful analogy. Think of a coalition like a multi-ingredient stew. When balanced, it is nourishing, but conflicting spices can spoil the flavor if not managed carefully. Now a quick exam insight. This concept is very important for your exams because questions often probe coalition stability, federal balance, and the impact on governance and policy making. You may encounter questions in prelims that test basic definitions, and in mains or essays that ask for balanced arguments with examples from the UPA or NDA eras. When framing answers, start with a clear definition. Give historical or contemporary examples. List merits and demerits, and end with a reasoned evaluation or reform suggestions. One key idea many aspirants miss is how coalition dynamics interact with federalism. Regional parties can strengthen federal bargaining but also create center-state tensions. That interplay matters for policy implementation, fiscal transfers, and lawmaking. So bring it into your answers when relevant. Let me recap the essentials simply. Coalition means alliance. Features include joint decision-making and distributed power. It arose from political fragmentation and regional assertion. Merits: inclusivity, consensus, flexibility. Demerits: weaker central control, informal bargaining, policy incoherence, and slower decisions. For UPSC practice, memorize a few key coalitions, explain causes and consequences, and always balance pros and cons in your answers. You are now better placed to write crisp answers or speak confidently in interviews about coalition politics. Keep revising the timeline of Indian coalitions and practice one short case study from the UPA or NDA period to anchor your answers. If you want ready-made notes, model answers, and timed practice questions on coalition politics, continue your preparation with EduRev for structured guidance and revision support. Thanks for listening. Stay curious, and I'll see you in the next lesson on party systems and federal dynamics.